Hi guys, welcome to the Overdrive live show. Hope you're having a very good week. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll take you through one of Overdrive's most ambitious drives yet. You do know Bert headed up to Ladakh a few weeks ago to set up charging points along the Chandigarh-Leh highway. Do post any questions you may have in our comment section and we'll be back shortly to answer all of them live for you.
Today we're setting off on what could be Overdrive's most ambitious project yet. We're driving up, as you can see, in front of a EV charging station, and what I'm getting charged here is the Audi E-Tron, and we're heading up all the way to Leh. I'm at Audi's dealership in Chandigarh. We're charging the E-Tron out here, but we're then going to make the nearly 800 kilometer journey going all the way up to Leh in the E-Tron. Possible, impossible, we'll know in the next few minutes if that happened or not. What we've done is not just driving this car up to Leh. What we're also doing at the same time, in association with Audi and ABB, Overdrive is setting up 5 charging stations along the way from Chandigarh going all the way up to Leh. These 5 points are at Mandi, Manali, Jispa, Pang, and then finally one more in Leh.
The charger provided by ABB is a 22 kilowatt Type 2 AC charger. It is one of the quickest AC charger setups anywhere in the country and is capable of charging, let's say, a 50 kilowatt hour battery in a little over 2 hours. However, the e-tron is restricted to accept only up to 11 kilowatts from an AC charger, much like other EVs, and this extends the charging time taken. However, the next generation of EVs will be able to accept the full 22 kilowatt from Type 2 AC chargers. So, charging should be a much quicker affair.
We started off from Audi Chandigarh, and unfortunately, well, there have been power issues in Chandigarh, because of which we couldn't get a full charge on the e-tron. I've got a range of about 287 kilometers.
The effort was to get to Mandi, roughly around 210 kilometers away from Chandigarh. We had set up another charging point at the Patial filling station, an IOCL petrol pump. It's not as simple a journey as we thought it would be. The climb up to Patial saw us lose a significant amount of charge, and even the traffic and constant halts could barely juice up the e-tron. Things were looking tough. We made it to Patial with very little charge to spare. And to add to our problems, there was no power due to some construction work on the highway, which meant we had to wait until power was restored to the region. Nonetheless, we got around 50% of charge and were on our way to Manali well after sundown.
We're now ready to start off on our next leg, which takes us from this wonderful Himalayan resort in Manali. That's where we've set up the second charging station on the Chandigarh to Leh highway. But we are now heading to Jispa, to Padma Lodge. We are crossing over from Manali through the Atal tunnel into the Lahaul and Spiti Valley. Now this is the first time that an electric vehicle, an SUV, is going to go through the Atal tunnel. That itself is a momentous occasion, but then we're going to enter proper Himalayan territory. E-Tron makes the most sense for a journey of this sort. A distance of about 700 kilometers between Chandigarh to Leh. The E-Tron is best suited for it because, well, it's got the largest battery, first of all. 95 kilowatt hour battery. It is the largest, which means it holds the most capacity. Second, you've got two electric motors, one driving the front axle, the other driving the rear axle. But all of that, the battery management system also, depending on the mode you're driving in, whether it's the range mode, the efficiency mode, or whether you want to be in the dynamic mode, will divert power to either of those motors. So you can be front wheel driven, or rear wheel driven, or all wheel driven as well. Third, it's got adjustable dampers, which means you can raise the height of the car or lower the height of the car. And in Ladakh, there definitely are certain sections where we need the additional ground clearance to get across some of the obstacles. Bad roads, essentially. Roads which sometimes have, well, rocks strewn all over them. And third is the range. Audi claims WLTP cycles. Well, this 408 PS motor, the combined motors output, with over 600 Newton meters of torque, will still give you a range of about anywhere between 350 to 480 kilometers, which makes it ideal for a drive of this sort because distances are long, you're climbing up the mountains, so you've got altitude to take care of as well, and it all becomes very challenging. So you want a vehicle that is optimal. Now this is because the first time we're trying this and we're setting it up, we wanted the optimal car. But for those in the future who want to take this journey, undertake this journey to Leh, well, depending on the conditions, depending on the situation, how many more chargers can be added along that route, I think this would be a fairly simple task to do. So we've come up to Jispa, which is a distance of about just a little short of 100 kilometers. And the E-Tron's given fairly decent range today. We just lost about 110 kilometers of charge. That's about it. But we're here in front of the charging unit. We're charging it, but there are immense voltage fluctuations. In fact, when we landed in here, there was no power. And this is one challenge that some of these regions in India will face as EV proliferation grows stronger across the country. Some far-flung regions will have power outages, will have voltage fluctuations, and while we're trying to and hoping that things get better, fingers crossed that by morning, at least 8 hours away, we get enough of charge in our battery. We had an early morning start today, but there are a few challenges that we've been encountering on this journey. One of them is that we are in fairly remote regions of the country. Now, Jispa was facing several power outages, voltage fluctuations, which meant that we couldn't charge at optimum supply. Nevertheless, we managed to get some amount of charge into our system. Our range is limited and we've got a fairly long distance to go today, almost 160 kilometers. We're losing charge at an enormous rate and I'm pretty concerned. Range anxiety in the mountains, it's a very real thing. It's frightful and I am a bit nervous about how far we're going to make it because I can rapidly see us losing charge, but this is extremely tricky. Now we're going to have to cut off our journey and spend the night at Sarchu. Can we make it up to Pang? I don't know.
Another tricky bit is we've come up to an off-road patch. And essentially what happens here is that if you leave the E-Tron in auto driving mode or even in efficiency mode, the E-Tron uses its four-wheel drive powertrain, which means power is delivered to both axles and that consumes energy. The only way to offset this is to keep it in range mode.
We're also driving on range mode. Now, range mode essentially switches off most of the electronics in this car in terms of your navigation, your audio, any other assist systems. And to increase efficiency or rather to get the maximum range, it also means not having to use the heating system. So it is cold, My windows are fogging up and there essentially is no way to clean them up. So it's crucial to manage your driving style. It's very important to realize that you cannot drive like you are in urban conditions. You have to consistently go gentle on the throttle in these altitudes and effectively use a little more braking, because that enables you to recuperate some energy back into the battery. The other challenge over here is that we're consistently climbing. The roads are fantastic, we're climbing, and it gives us very few opportunities to recuperate charge. Here's another interesting challenge that we're facing. The E-Tron is a fantastically handling car. Brilliant dynamics, absolutely stable, such fantastic stability. So in a conventional car with not so great dynamics, it constantly brake in the corners, slow down, take the corner gently. The E-Tron is able to just carry itself through that corner. And that means we're not able to generate enough charge as we're going along. So you have to try and increase your speed to a point where you'd have to brake when you enter a corner. But here's the irony of it. For you to get up to speed, you discharge some, and then when you brake, you hope that you recover, get back a little bit of that energy you've lost while picking up your speed. This journey is all about claiming small victories every single step of the way.
Not an easy journey. The 160 odd kilometers were tough on us and the E-Tron. Fortunately, with some careful driving, we were able to make it to Pang early in the evening.
This is Pang. We're roughly 15,000 plus feet above sea level, but we're here because we're installing India's highest electric charging point. Now that's a Type 2 AC charging station right behind there, getting set up. This is being set up thanks to ABB and Lion Charge. We've got an extensive network around the country, and now this becomes the highest charging station. The E-Tron, well, it's been absolutely fantastic. I think it's almost done. We're finished with that. The E-Tron's been fantastic, but it's time to give it a charge before we head up to Lake. With that, we're ready to get it charged.
With voltage issues, we couldn't gather enough charge in the E-Tron and had to make do with just 50% battery charge before we set off for Leh, driving over the highest pass on this journey, the Tanglangla. However, the E-Tron had no issues whatsoever reaching Leh. Even though charge dropped down to nearly 20%, we comfortably reached our charging station at the Fortune Hotel in Spituk, Farka. Next morning, we were on schedule to inaugurate Leh's fastest electric vehicle charger yet.
मैं स्वागत करना चाहूँगा ओडी के जो पहला लद्दाख में आए ऐसे इलेक्ट्रिक सपोर्टेड जो कार व्हीकल जो लद्दाख में पहुँचे हैं। और खुशी की बात इसमें भी है, चंडीगढ़ से जो मनाली से होते हुए पंग से, और आज फॉर्मली यहाँ के लद्दाख ऑटोनोमस हिल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल ले के ऑनरेबल चेयरमैन साहब की उपस्थिति में और हम दोनों की उपस्थिति में इसका लद्दाख में इनॉग्रेशन भी हुआ। मैं धन्यवाद भी करना चाहूँगा भारत के यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री माननीय श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने, जिन्होंने लद्दाख के प्रति एक कार्बन न्यूट्रल लद्दाख के जो नारा दिया, विजन दिया, और कार्बन न्यूट्रल लद्दाख बनाने के लिए यहाँ की यूटी प्रशासन, दोनों काउंसिल, सभी पब्लिक रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स और यहाँ के लोग सब मिल के एकजुट होकर कार्बन न्यूट्रलिटी लद्दाख बनाने के लिए जो काम कर रहा है, उसी में एक वर्धन हमारे सामने आया ऐसे इलेक्ट्रिकल व्हीकल, जिसकी वजह से आने वाले महीनों में, सालों में यहाँ से डीजल और पेट्रोल मुक्त लद्दाख बना के इस तरह के कार, इस तरह के व्हीकल, इस तरह के बसेस, स्कूटर चलाए और यहाँ के खरदोंगला जैसे ऊंचाई, सियाचन ग्लेशियर जैसे ऊंचाई, जितने भी यहाँ बर्फीले चोटी है वो सारा बचे और यहाँ के आने वाली ज़िंदगी बचे और जनरेशन टू जनरेशन हम लोगों के हाथ में इस लद्दाख के स्वच्छ इस प्राकृतिक सौंदर्य को हम इस तरह दे पाए।
So we got into Leh pretty late last night, but we made it here comfortably. It was a bit of a difficult journey because when we set off from Pang, it was pretty late at night. We kind of Lost a lot of range climbing up Tanglangla Pass because Tanglangla Pass is pretty high, 17,000 feet above sea level. But we've now made it to Leh. This is the Fortune Resort in Ladakh in Leh, and this is where we set up the 22 kilowatt hour charging station.
But Leh wasn't the only frontier. We even made it all the way up to Khardungla, once famously known as the world's highest motorable road.
We just left K-Top, and as you can see, I've got about 94 kilometers of charge left, or rather range left, and I'm going to recuperate some energy back into the system. To do that, I go into regen mode 1. So while the E-Tron is still rolling, it's also charging the battery. When I come down to the corners, I can go into regen mode 2. There's further charging happening. Use the right paddle shift to release the regen mode from level 2. Come back to level 1, let it continue rolling, let it charge, which it does at a lesser rate, but nonetheless, the charging is still happening. And keep in mind, every time you use the brakes as well, you continue to charge the system. As I gather momentum, I go back into charge mode. While I've lost 1 kilometer of range, I'm sure another few kilometers down, we will have recuperated quite a bit of it. So as you can see, we've reached our hotel in Leh, and my range is now showing 187 kilometers, and I've probably recuperated about 5% to 8% of energy back into my battery, which is not too bad at all. But this is essentially what you can do. So you can lose range, but given circumstances and given the conditions, driving conditions, you could also recover your energy. We set off from Leh with almost a 95% charge, and we've reached Manali with 32% charge left on the battery. But here's the deal. The advantage that you're getting when you're driving from Leh towards Manali or towards Chandigarh is that you're coming downhill entirely. That's a huge advantage for an electric car. What's important to keep a check on is not the range that you're getting, because in the mountains, the range keeps fluctuating. We were coasting downhill and increasing our range, increasing the efficiency of the charge that we had left, and that is what enabled us to get from Leh all the way up to Manali in just one charge, over 420 kilometers in just one charge. Unbelievable what this car is capable of.
We came across many challenges on this journey. Not knowing our vehicle well enough, power issues in various regions, not knowing what the elevation of the land would do to the battery, charge optimization. We didn't even know if the batteries would hold their charge in these conditions, or would they drain like our camera batteries did. Well, they did. So that was satisfying. What was also hugely satisfying is that our entire adventure into Leh and back to civilization in the E-Tron cost us just around 5,500 rupees for the electricity. For the IC engined vehicles, it was over 3 times that cost. But our biggest takeaway from this journey was that taking an EV into far-flung regions of the country is not a seamless, stress-free drive yet. Perhaps by next year, it may be, just maybe. In a moment of rational madness, we achieved the impossible. But we had the E-Tron. It has the largest battery pack, the highest range, and technology that makes the journey possible. Other cars, though, will follow.
I hope you enjoyed that story. In fact, we'll be putting up the longer version of that video on YouTube soon as well. It'll be... Sorry, just a second. I'll just get Bert on the show as well.
Hi, Zoe. You're still on mute?
I'm not on mute. Can you hear me?
I am unable to hear you.
All right. Guys, just let me know if you guys can hear me. If someone can just let me know in the comment section.
Well, unfortunately, I'm still unable to hear you.
I'm not on mute, but I think it's a transmission issue.
And nothing as yet. Okay. Well, I can hear you a bit on my. There's some reason. There's some issues that I'm facing on streaming through my
StreamYard.
phone, but I'm able to hear you on YouTube. I can hear you a bit on my. There's some reason. There's some issues that I'm facing on streaming through my phone. But
All right, Bert. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and ask Bert to log out and log in again. Until then, guys, you all can feel free to send us some of your questions regarding this. In fact, we will be playing this story on
sorry, I'm
CNBC
going to
TV
log out
18.
and I'm going to log in again.
Yes, Bert. Right, so we're going to be playing the story on CNBC TV 18 as well. It's a very special story to us. In fact, this wasn't... Sorry, okay, we've got Bert once again. He's joined us.
There we are. And now everything's fine.
Can you hear me, right, Bert?
I can hear you perfectly fine. Super.
All right. But you ended by saying that we're not yet ready to travel to the mountains with electric vehicles. But just after you came back, we did see an image of a Tesla, which was in Manali, right? Using the same charger.
Well, yes, Manali. The Teslas made it up to Manali. There you see it. And well, the intent with which the car had gone up was to try and get to Leh. Unfortunately, the roads were snowed up and it couldn't. Also, keep in mind the Teslas right now give some of the highest ranges in the EV segment. So it could possibly have done, or rather, have made an easier journey for itself. But thanks to the weather, thanks to the passes being snowed out, it couldn't go up. It couldn't use the chargers that we'd set up all along that route, going all the way up to Leh. But yeah, there's always next year once season opens. I'm certain it won't just be the Teslas going up there, but it'll be a lot more cars trying to at least reach up to Jispa. A lot more electric cars trying to reach all the way up to Jispa.
But that's really amazing. Like you mentioned in the story, just spending around 5,500 rupees on a 700 plus kilometer drive. In fact, 1,400, right? If you calculate going
Yeah.
up and down.
And come down. Yes, that's right. That's right. 1,400 kilometers plus the journey to Delhi, from Delhi to Chandigarh and back to Delhi as well. So all of that cumulatively 5,500 rupees is an absolute steal given the way fuel prices are right now. Even though there's been some reductions, it's still expensive. But an EV, I mean, any day hands down beats an IC engine, at least where costs are concerned. I would say not costs of the electric vehicle, but the fuel source.
And also a luxury vehicle like Audi, the SUV. There
Oh,
was
yes.
a question. In fact, Bert, you have not spoken at all about the two other Audis which were following the e-tron.
Well, my bad, but I had two Q2s supporting me, and they were absolutely brilliant. Of course, they had a few issues with ground clearance because in some of the terrain where the roads get pretty rough, and you saw us going through Sarchu plains where the highway was being constructed, or rather at least improved. And we had this slight diversion to take, which was essentially a field of fesh or this very fine sandy mud that kind of gets into everything. And the biggest problem is you can't see what is under that layer of dust. So there were obstacles, there were stones, they were not stones, I'd say they were rocks that we had to drive over. And there were certain other sections also, broken roads and broken patches. And while the e-tron, you can raise or lower the ground clearance, you can't do that in the Q2. And yet the Q2s made that journey all the way up to Leh quite comfortably, I must add. I'm sure Audi was not too happy when we gave the cars back, seeing all the scratches and on the underbelly. But we're sorry about that, Audi. But overall, I think the Q2s were just as impressive. Yes, the e-tron overshadowed these two small compact SUVs, but the Q2s were just as much fun.
But there's one more thing that I noticed. You guys had a lot of fun with the e-tron. Like you mentioned, you were sliding around in the sandy patches and stuff like that. That is something which is easily done in a electric vehicle, right? Because you don't have to worry about dust getting in into the air filter. Is that something that is
Yeah, well, in a sense, yes. But some of the dust is so fine, it could possibly, it could affect the electrical components. Maybe not the motor and the battery, of course, because the battery is a sealed unit, and there's nothing that will enter the battery unit. But some of the other electrical components, essentially under the dashboard, under the hood, the battery management system, the ECUs, any other components that are there which are electronically sourced, those the dust can enter those, and fortunately we didn't have any issues, and I'm hoping some of the other EVs also won't have these issues. But yes, there's always the possibility that dust can affect a journey of this sort.
all right? We'll start taking the questions. In fact, Bhargava wanted to know: does the e-tron have better range than expected?
Not really. It doesn't have better range. I'd say the range is what it is. On this journey, however, what effectively happened was that because we were consistently climbing all the way from Chandigarh going up to Leh, we were consistently climbing over these passes ranging from anywhere between 16 to 17,000 feet above sea level. These are tremendously high passes. The journey, the path going up, the road leading up to these passes also aren't really short. It's a long, windy, twisty surface. The road going up to Barlacha, for instance, is extremely long, and that is what affects the range climbing up, because you're consistently on throttle while climbing up, and on the way down, you're not really in a position to recover a lot of energy. So you lose a lot more going up, but on the way down, there is certainly some amount of energy that you regain, you recuperate, but it's not enough charge as much as you lost before. The only advantage that we got was the journey from Tanglangla all the way down to Leh, where it's a fairly long, almost 100 kilometers, which takes you completely downhill. You're just constantly descending, descending, descending. So from Tanglangla all the way down to Leh, you're just recuperating charge, and you're recuperating it at a very fast rate because the downhill, the inclination, the decline rather, is quite sharp. So you do recover a lot of charge on the way down. Now, this would not be possible anywhere else. The corollary to this also is that on the way up to Tanglangla, back going towards Manali, when coming from Leh, climbing up to Tanglangla, you lose a fair amount of charge. Fortunately, on the other side, coming down, it's a fairly long descent as well, and you can recover a fair amount of charge. So by the time we kind of reach the Moreh Plains, and where you saw us having a lot of fun with the e-tron, sliding it around, because it can do that. It can transfer most of the power, majority of the power towards the rear motors, and make it rear-wheel driven. We recovered quite a fair amount of charge. We are almost at about 80-85% charge by the time we got to Moreh Plains, and we recovered that. And then further on, coming back towards Manali, we consistently, while we lost a bit of charge, we consistently kept recovering it, because you're constantly descending. You're just descending, descending, descending throughout the journey. Which is why I say it is possible. Which is why it is possible for us to do that entire journey from Leh all the way up to Manali in just one single charge.
Okay, we have a question here from Mayur. He wants to know that, Bod, had you taken any other route apart from the Atal Tunnel, would the car have made it there?
Absolutely, Mayur. It would have made it there, because the way we had planned this, and this planning was on for several months, lots of discussions between Audi, ABB, Lion Charge, and us, of course, as to how we would dissect this route. Where would we put up the charging systems, and how much of range would that offer us? Keep in mind, we were not in a position to do a recce, so whatever we went on, when we left for the drive was, well, a recce of sorts, as well as the actual drive. But our decisions were quite rational in that sense. They were well founded, and even if we had to take the Rohtang Pass, we would have comfortably made it up to Jispa. It would have definitely been a lot more challenging, because it would have taken us longer. We would have lost more charge, and Jispa, the voltage fluctuations over there essentially meant that we did not get as much charge back in the car as we hoped to. Now, because we took the Atal Tunnel, it made our journey shorter, considerably shorter, and we did not discharge the battery as much as it would have discharged if we had to go over Rohtang Pass. and we were able to recover quite a bit of it also back in Jispa. Not so much because of voltage fluctuations again, like I mentioned in the story, but we still recovered some part of that. So because we had discharged just about 70, 60, 70%, we were able to recover about another 10, 15% at Jispa. Now, if we had to lose about 60% or lesser, probably going up over Rotang and then descending down, we might not have been able, we were still recovered about the 10, 15%, which are not left us the large enough bank probably to get up to Pang.
But in fact, Mayur says he's got a great story idea for you. He says after the success of the E-Tron story, he thinks you should take the E-Tron and the Taycan to some remote destination. Mayur, why don't you also let us know what that remote destination is that you want us to take these cars to?
Well, the Taycan and the e-tron GT, yes, I'd definitely love to do that with both of these cars, and that is if Porsche can spare a car, and if Audi can also spare the e-tron GT for that matter. But yes, I certainly think there is a story in there. Both siblings and both of them getting onto some fantastic location. Maybe not Ladakh. The cars are just too low for that terrain. But there are other locations that we can definitely head out to with the Taycan and the e-tron GT.
Okay. We'll move on to some other questions. But Aman Kumar wants to know any news or rumors of the Genesis coming to India?
Aman, no, nothing as of yet. The Genesis, there is no plans to come down to India. They're consistently evaluating these plans, but the market, in their opinion, is still not ready for the Genesis. Also, keep in mind the price at which the Genesis will be available. You could buy a Mercedes, an Audi, or a BMW, and it's very strong for a Korean car maker to beat the brand image of the Germans. So it really doesn't make sense. It isn't a logical choice to bring a full luxury sedan like the Genesis from the Genesis brands down to India. These decisions are still under evaluation, and I'm not sure if it actually will bear fruit. But I don't see any hope for it coming anytime soon.
But Sunil Prasad wants to know that if he's installing a GLS 63 AMG kit to a GL 350 with the AMG rims, will it affect its ride quality considering the GL does not have a settled ride quality to begin with?
Yes, you will with the AMG kit. It will depend on the size of the tires. You will need to figure out the rims and the tires for that matter. You will need the low profile tires. So ride quality on the GL350 will get ruined. Let's be very clear with that. That's first and foremost. But apart from that, you've also got 20-inch wheels tires on the GLA63 that AMG kit has got those 22 inches, which will definitely not fit on the GL350 comfortably. That's one. Again, you cannot raise the height of the GL350 as much as you'd want, with the GL on the older GL for that matter. So you will have certain issues that will be there. It's not going to be an easy fitment. Cosmetically, you can do a lot of stuff, but putting the new alloys, the new tires from the GLS 63 AMG kit, it's going to be a tough one.
But Mukund wants to know why does the Celerio look this ugly?
Because I really can't tell you much about the Celerio today because there is an embargo on this until the 17th. So you just have to wait for next weekend's show, the next Friday's show. I will definitely tell you a lot more about the Celerio. Do keep your fingers crossed, and I really can't tell you much at this point in time. So Mukund, do hold on.
All right, here's a question from Karthik. Nexon petrol or the Brezza for highways?
Oh, tough one. I would say the Nexon petrol for the highways because Tata Motors, if they do one thing right, that is ride quality and comfort. Suspension systems are extremely well sorted out, and in that regard, I think the Nexon will be a far more comfortable drive for ride quality and that comfort for long distance driving. Less exhausting also. The Brezza, yes, you definitely feel that strain on the engine. The ride quality is a little stiffer, and it can be a little exhausting over longer distances. So, Karthik, Nexon petrol, that's the choice.
But Srikaran is looking for a 7-seater MUV. He wants to know whether it's worth waiting for the upcoming Kia.
Yes, Srikar, you better wait for the upcoming Kia. So far, whatever they've come out in the market with has been very, very impressive. And I think whatever they will come with will continue to carry that legacy forward. So do wait. Do wait.
All right, we have yet another question from Bhargava. Why don't manufacturers offer DCT gearboxes with 9 or 10 gear ratios? Neither do they offer it with less than 6 gear ratios.
Well, there is a mechanical concern with this, Bhargav, because less than six gear ratios, you need enough of gears between which the dual clutch will operate. So you need more things. At the same time, keep in mind not a lot of cars are coming. The larger, more expensive cars, Mercedes Benz certainly offers DCT as well. There are other manufacturers that offers DCT with more gear ratios in their cars. But it's not easy to get it down. You can't get it down to below six ratios. You just can't do it mechanically. There aren't enough of gears in that transmission for the dual clutch to operate.
All right, he had asked one more question, but to Rohit. Unfortunately, Rohit can't join us today on the show. But here's a question. He said he's bought the Nexon EV. Are there any range issues with the car as you have driven it? Basically, he was asking Rohit since he's driven it.
Okay, Bhargav, first and foremost, what you need to learn with an EV is an entirely new style of driving, something that you would not have done with a standard IC engine. You need to brake more often. You need to brake harder. You just posting also helps you to get you the best range possible. Uh, EVs work well in urban areas. They don't work as well in on highways for that matter, because on highways you're constantly on the throttle. Now the only way to offset this is to give it some gas, or rather give it some charge, and then let go of the throttle, let the car coast, then accelerate again leave this, again accelerate, again let go of the throttle. And this will, while you're losing charge, you will still keep recuperating as you're coasting as well. Also, if you've got regen modes on your cars, keep that in mind. Consistently use that. We use this on the E-Tron while driving up into the, and it allowed us to recuperate a fair amount of energy back into the system. So there are no range issues necessarily with the Nexon EV. I've said this in the past as well. What happens is that ARAI tests all of these vehicles, every vehicle that is sold in India for that matter, made in India for that matter, and they do this on a dynamometer, on a simulated test bed, and effectively that gives you ideal ranges. That gives the ranges that are not actually available in real world conditions. Now we've had several manufacturers telling us that these range figures that ARI provides them, one that is the only one that they can provide to consumers, and secondly, those are not real world. They don't really work, and manufacturers have been facing this issue. But I'm hoping it will get sorted out in the near future. However, it really isn't a range issue as much as it is a communication issue.
All right, but Vipin wants to know, do we have any details for the Hilux launch?
Well, Vipin, we are still waiting ourselves for the Hilux to come in, and I am waiting for it to come in. But anything that I have to share with you will only be, we'll only see it sometime next year, nothing before that.
All right. Guys, keep sending in your questions and we'll just run you through the news from this week and we'll get back to answering your questions. So starting with Maruti Suzuki, they've launched the second generation Celerio hatchback in India. Prices for the new Celerio start from 4.99 lakh rupees for the base LXI, and bookings have already begun across Maruti Suzuki Arena showrooms and online for 11,000 rupees deposit. We won't get into the details of this model because like Bert said, he's just driven it and we'll be able to bring you the review next week. But notable features are a 7-inch touchscreen integrated with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, push button start, steering mounted controls, 60-40 split rear seats, and also a hill start assist function. The Celerio is now powered by a new 1-liter K10cc dual jet motor that puts out improved power and torque figures. So more on that next week. Volvo India has launched the 2-liter turbo petrol mild hybrid variant of the XC90 sedan that puts out 304 PS of power and 420 Newton meters of torque. The reworked suite of ADAS features has been added to the XC90 with this update. This includes adaptive cruise control, pilot assist, lane keeping aid, blind spot monitoring with cross traffic alert, front and rear collision mitigation, 360-degree cameras, and park assist. A 3-year service package is being offered with the SUV for 75,000 rupees as well. And after a long wait, Porsche has launched its fully electric Taycan in India, starting at 1.5 crore rupees ex-showroom. India going up to 2.31 crore rupees for the Turbo S variant. Deliveries will begin from the first quarter of next year. The entry-level rear-wheel drive only Taycan offers up to 484 kilometers of range with the Performance Battery Plus mode on. according to the WLTP cycle. The car produces 408 PS, and that number can be bumped up to 476 PS in overboost mode. The Taycan 4S model offers 490 PS and 571 PS in overboost mode. It's quick too and can touch 100 kmph in just 4.1 seconds. The Taycan's closest rival in India comes in the form of the Audi E-Tron GT. Alongside the Taycan EV, Porsche also launched a facelifted Macan with prices starting at 85 lakh rupees. Deliveries of this SUV are expected to begin in January, a significant update before the Macan goes fully electric from 2023. The base Porsche Macan is now fitted with a new 2-liter turbo petrol that puts out 265 PS, while the Macan S is powered by a 2.9-liter V6 that makes 26 PS more than the previous 3-liter at 380 PS. The Macan GTS also gets this engine now and makes 60 PS more power than the previous GTS model. Good news coming in from Mahindra's stable as well. The XUV 700 has become the latest car to score a 5-star safety rating from Global NCAP. The XUV 700 scored 16.3 out of 17 in adult protection, and with a score of 41.66 out of 49, the Mahindra has become the highest scoring car from India at the back of its child protection. And in terms of two-wheeler news, Ducati has launched the updated BS6 compliant Hypermotard 950 in India, starting at 12.99 lakh rupees ex-showroom. The motorcycle is available in two variants, the Hypermotard 950 RVE and the Hypermotard 950 SP. Both variants are powered by a BS6 tuned 937cc Testa Stretta V-twin engine that produces the same power and torque figures as before. The gearbox has been revised to make it easier to engage neutral when the bike is stationary and to improve gear shifts. Both models also get bi-directional quick shifter as standard equipment. In terms of riding aids, the motorcycle features cornering ABS, traction control, and wheelie control. All right.
That is the motorcycle I want. Next.
It's time, Bert. It's time, and then you can head to the track with it.
No, heading to the track with it. With other places. This is being a hooligan on the roads.
All right. Okay, we have a question here, Bert, from Aman Kumar. Now that Volvo XC90 Recharge has been launched, how does it fare against the British or German rivals in the same segment?
Well, we've still to test the car. To be honest, the XC90 Recharge is something that needs to be tested. But how would it fare against the British or the German rivals in the same segment? Very tough question. Now, the Volvos have always been phenomenal in terms of comfort, in terms of styling, performance as well, for that matter. But this is all based on their IC engine technology. We've not driven a Volvo electric as of now. But I'm hoping that we could do this in the months to come. They will be having that option will be available to us in the coming months. So let's see. Having said that, so far from what we've driven within India, the two cars that I really like in the EV space, of course, are the I-Pace and then the E-Tron, both phenomenal SUVs and phenomenal electric vehicles also, for that matter. It will be a tough call for the XC90 to kind of overcome either of these two offerings. And the other part is that the XC90s, how do I say it? The appeal does not necessarily lie in its performance aspects or what it can do off-road, for that matter. This is a car that is more tuned towards comfort, drivability, and giving a fantastic on-road experience, for that matter. So I think it will be a fantastic car. Gauging from Volvos in the past, they've all been brilliant SUVs, even sedans, for that matter. And I think the 90 Recharge will be no different.
But in fact, you've driven the Taycan as well 2 years ago.
Yes.
Now, I know they're different body styles, but is there any, can you draw parallels between the Taycan and the E-Tron, since they belong to the same big umbrella brand?
Well, yes, you can draw parallels, of course, because there just are a lot of similarities. In fact, the e-tron GT that we just drove a couple of days ago, I mean, that I also carried a Porsche toolbox inside the car, and but there are parallels that you can draw. Performance-wise, they feel quite similar to that for that matter. Of course, not the Taycan, the rear-wheel drive, the base Taycan for that matter, but the 4S, you certainly get that kind of appeal. What I had driven in Scandinavia, I had driven the car in icy conditions, and it felt absolutely brilliant. Will the e-tron GT feel any less brilliant? I don't think so. It'll be just as capable. The interesting bit is that with the Taycan being launched in India, the more important aspect is that you can now own a Porsche electric vehicle at 1.5 crores, which is about 20 lakhs cheaper than the e-tron GT. The only difference being that it's rear-wheel driven compared to the e-tron GT, which is all-wheel driven. That's the only sort of difference that comes in between these two vehicles. E-tron GT in India at least is not available with the rear-wheel drive option at all. Audi just does all-wheel drive for that matter. So yes, there is that appeal of having a rear-wheel driven electric vehicle. I think that should also score it a fair amount of brownie points amongst connoisseurs of Porsche. And of course, let me
Okay.
not forget this. I mean, the drama that you get inside the Porsche, once you're sitting inside the Porsche, it is far more dramatic, I would say, than the e-tron GT. The e-tron GT is a luxurious car. It's a grand tourer, par excellence. But the drama that you would want in a car at this price bracket, I mean, that is what the Porsche delivers in spades.
Oh, but the Instagram story that you, not story, the post that you, reel that you put up, bot with the GT was pretty dramatic, I would say. That was pretty
It
good
is.
as well.
It is. It is. I mean, for someone who was standing outside, I was standing outside and shooting that as Simran drove the car, and the sound that comes from the car, and you put it into dynamic mode, and the kind of futuristic sound that whoosh that you hear, it's like a turbine going on at full revolution. It's an airplane turbine going on at full revolution, and it sounds fantastic. It's very interesting. I unfortunately couldn't capture the audio, louder, but when you're standing right next to the car and you hear it starting up, and it's a slight metallic sound. There's a slight metallic sound to it. It sounds like a turbine, going at full steam, but it just sounds unreal and just so fantastic.
Okay, we have a question from Amal. Amal wants to know, what about the Ola scooter review?
Amal, you just have to wait for that as well. Even that has been pushed forward to the 15th. We would have had that story out for you by now. But unfortunately, you're still going to have to wait for another 3 days for that story to come out. But do watch it on YouTube. It will be there. That story will be out there on YouTube. It will also be playing out on CNBC TV 18 and, of course, for our review on our website.
All right, but Dilip wants to know, do you feel India is ready for ADAS tech? Because despite the car makers' huge enthusiasm to offer more features, are drivers really going to use those features in general traffic?
Well, Dilip, there are certainly a few features that you could use out of ADAS. Considering, I mean, let's just look at it from the perspective of the MG Astor, which has got ADAS, and there are certainly some features that you could use. Adaptive cruise control is certainly one of those. Also, if you are conscious about what kind of speeds you are doing, then the speed sensing feature is also a very important feature. In fact, I was talking to MG about it and asking them to make that feature a mandatory feature in all the cars, standard feature in all of their cars, where you cannot opt to switch it off. It stays on all the time, because what that would do is it would force the car to reduce its speed or adhere to the speed limit prescribed on a particular road. So if it sees a signboard that's posted saying the speed limit in this area or this, for the next few kilometers or whatever it is 50 kilometers an hour, the car will not exceed 50 kilometers an hour. You'll be forced to drive it, because the car will automatically do that. And I think that was a great feature to have. But most of the other features that are there, it will be a challenge. You will certainly get some of those warning bells and whistles that are there when either when you're trying to change lanes without indicating, or if there is a vehicle coming up in your blind spot. These are useful features. But yes, India is a chaotic country. Traffic on our roads is absolutely chaotic. And the question will be left up to the driver, to the owner of the car, whether he wants to constantly hear that buzzing sound, those oral and visual warning cues going on off all the time. It's going to be a tough one.
But Sunil has yet another question. What's the level of adjustment you have to make on the airmatic suspension on the GL? Is the car any good off-road, since it does not have any serious off-road kit?
So if you want to take the Sunil, if you want to take the GL off road, then the better option is to actually equip it with the all-terrain tires, 80 profile tires, which will get you better dynamics or better crawlabilities in off-road conditions. The AMG kit, essentially, keep in mind those tires are low-profile tires. The profile of the tire itself is built to be driven on tarmac. It's not really ideal for off-road conditions. Mild dust and dirt tracks, yes, it will handle that. But anything more serious than that, it won't. But the GL on the whole, of course, will take you to places that you wouldn't imagine, provided you had the right tires on them.
But Aman has an interesting question. Now that a facelift model comes every 2 to 3 years, when does a car become old? And how old is too old? And when does a car become a classic car?
Aman, yes, there is. This is consistently happening. Every 2 to 3 years, manufacturers are refreshing their models. Mild cosmetic changes happening, and we consistently see these coming on the markets both in India and of course globally as well. So when does a car actually become old? Well, I think it would be old as per the mandated norms pertaining to that particular country where it operates in. In India, it is the 10 and 15-year rules are there in place in any case. So that is something that's you don't have a choice with that, and you just have to flush your car out, take it out of the system once you crosses that threshold. But how old is too old? Well, let me tell you this: a lot of the IC engine cars, I have seen cars in Europe. Let's say, seen German cars, for instance. I mean, these go on for miles and miles. I have seen taxis, E-class taxis, for instance, in Germany, being used for like 200,000 kilometers, and the drivers swear that they've never ever opened up the engine, they've never ever had to do any work on them. They run absolutely, they're bulletproof, they're resilient to any wear and tear for that matter. So that's, I mean, 200,000 kilometers is a long distance to travel for any car of that sort. When does a car become a classic? Well, there are regulations for that as well. I would suggest you head down to the FIVA website, FIVA, and they will give you, there's a proper classification of when cars rather are vintage and what cars are classic.
All right, but here's a question from Ruthwik. Which do you think should be considered between the A6 and the Volvo S90, and which car has a better ground clearance, which can take out tremendous roads?
But I think they're both good cars, but I think I would my vote would go for the S90 because it's just such a fantastic car. There's just so much of drama. The design style of the car is another level and altogether. It is a spectacular car overall. The ride quality is brilliant. Performance, I'm not really going to be pushing a Volvo S90 around in any case, but it's as good as they come. And then there's the features, and of course that interior, that cabin is just so spectacular. I mean, I'd hands down vote for the S90 any day.
But are
Now,
there
I will have to come back to you, Ritvik, on the ground clearance. I'm not exactly sure which one has the better ground clearance between these two. Those are figures that you have to see. You can probably go down to Overdrive's website and we'll have those figures. You can compare the two cars next to each other and see which one has better ground clearance.
But can we expect any new products from Toyota in India?
Of course, you can expect a lot of new products coming out from Toyota in India. Some of them will be rebadged Maruti products, but some of them will be absolutely their own new vehicles as well. There are some imports expected as well, like the Hilux for that matter. So all this, however, will only happen in 2022. So Bhargav, just hold on to your horses. We will see new products coming in from Toyota well soon enough.
All right, and Dilip says, will Tata launch the Sierra in EV version and not in the IC version? Because if Tata launches it in two variants, I think it will give a serious competition to Creta and Seltos.
Well, Tata Motors has already shown that they are doing something of that sort, where the Nexon, for example, is available both as an IC and EV. So there's nothing stopping them from doing the Sierra with both powertrains for that matter in the future. But like I said, all of this is in the future. We still don't know what is the next product going to be from Tata Motors. So let's just hold on and see what product comes out. But will it give a tough, give a run to the Creta and the Seltos? At this point in time, I don't think so. That's a very tough market to beat, especially given the Creta's numbers. It's going to be very hard for Tata Motors to break into the Creta or the Seltos' market.
All right. Okay, Mukund is asking you about, is there any difference between on-road and off-road conditions in India?
Well, Mukund, well, some places that I've been, especially today, for instance, I've just come back from Udaipur to drive from where I was driving the Celerio, and some of the road conditions over there, man, Rajasthan has got some insanely
Good
fantastic
roads.
roads. This is supercar territory, proper supercar territory. But there are also equally bad, pathetic, tear your hair out of the roots kind of roads that can frustrate you. So, yes, I mean, Indian conditions on road and off road. I mean, you can get off road in the middle of a patch of tarmac.
But one last question we'll take. Sunil is asking, will Toyota launch the IC300 anytime soon, considering they have a 4-year waiting period in some markets?
No, I
All
think
right.
I'm nodding my head strong enough.
All right, Sunil. Thanks for your question. All right, I think what that's about it from this week. I don't think we have any more questions. Um, but yes, I'd like to remind all of you to tune in tomorrow at 1 p.m. to watch this journey of the Audi E-Tron going up to the Himalayas, and Bot and the others setting up charging stations across India, basically from Chandigarh to Leh on the route as well. So do tune in on Saturday at 1 p.m., Sunday 12:30, or even 8 p.m. We'll
Yeah,
see you
and
guys
do
next
spread
week
the
then.
word around, guys. Do spread the word around. I think I'd like to put one last mention over here. We've been extremely thankful to Audi for for agreeing to let us do this drive. Not an easy task, and it's been a tremendous challenge going up to Leh. Also, a big thank you to ABB and Lion Charge, both of who set up the chargers, believed in what we were doing, and readily came forward saying, "Let's go and do this." I think it will be an immense project. And then of course to all those other partners also who kind of came forward and put this up. I think anyone with an EV out there, you should definitely try this. Any season for that matter. Chandigarh has got fast charging stations at this point in time. We've set up one at the Patial filling station. There's an IOCL petrol pump. This will be visible on Lion Charge's app as well, and of course then up to Manali. So you can at the very least make up the journey to Manali in an electric vehicle at this point in time. Just keep in mind there are a few things that you need to learn about driving an EV. You need to recondition yourself, and the way you drive an EV is going to be a bit tricky, but nonetheless you can still manage this. Also, just to give you guys a heads up, if anyone's heading up towards Manali from Chandigarh, what you want to do is take the route that goes through this small town called Una, because in Una there is another 160 kilowatt fast charging setup, a DC charging setup, and that you can get full 100% battery charge back again. That will comfortably allow you to make your journey up to Patial. That is something that we did not do because we left Chandigarh a little later in the day. We drove straight up towards Patial just a little after Mandi. We were fortunate enough to reach there with just enough charge left in the battery to literally roll into the petrol pump. But for anyone else trying this out, the recommended route would be Chandigarh to Una, and then from Una to Patial, Patial to Manali.
All right, guys, as Bert mentioned, this is a very unique story. So do share it with your families and friends, and do tell them to tune in to CNBC tomorrow as well at 1 p.m. because you don't want to miss this kind of a story. It is electric is the future after all. So it's good to know. In fact, there are a lot of points that you can learn from Bert's story, the way to drive an electric vehicle up in the mountains as well. So we'll catch you next week then. Have a great weekend.
See you guys. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.